March 28th here in Seoul, and I'm Kim Dami. We begin with these stories making the headlines of this hour. Starting with campaign season here in South Korea. Official campaigning for the upcoming general election has begun as of Thursday. Candidates are now able to deliver speeches in open areas and give out their name cards. Members of Seoul's bus labor union are on a strike for the first time in 12 years as of 4 a.m. this morning, with the drivers seeking a wage hike. Hundreds of extra subway trains will be in operation until 2 a.m. South Korea and the United States have slapped yet another round of sanctions on 6 North Korean nationals and 2 third-country entities for helping Pyongyang secure funds for its weapons of mass destruction programs. Official campaigning for the April general election is now in full swing here in South Korea. Eligible candidates vying for seats in the National Assembly are carrying out their campaigns for 13 days, up until the day before in-person voting on April 10th. Ruling People Power Party interim leader Han Dong-hoon started off greeting people at a traditional market in the Songpago district of southeastern Seoul. And Lee Jae-myung, the main opposition Democratic Party's leader, in the center of the capital at Yongsan Station. Candidates can use public address systems to deliver speeches in open areas, as well as pass out their name cards. For the first time in 12 years, Seoul intercity bus drivers went on strike at 4 a.m. Thursday. The move comes despite 11-hour marathon negotiations that began on Wednesday afternoon. Lee Seung-jae has more.
The Seoul Bus Labor Union and representatives from management began last-minute negotiation talks on Wednesday at around 3 p.m. That meeting lasted for 11 hours before the labor union called for an end to the discussions in the early hours of Thursday morning. By 4 a.m., the union declared that its drivers would go on a strike, marking the first strike by Seoul's intracity bus drivers in 12 years. However, there is still hope that the two sides can agree to end the general strike as soon as possible. Despite the breakdown in negotiations, working-level talks are still ongoing, and attention is now being paid to how much the gap will be narrowed during this process and whether an agreement can be reached. The key issue behind the talks is a wage increase. The 18,000-member union has reportedly asked for a 12.7% increase in their hourly wage, a revision of their salary system, and the abolition of wage discrimination for contract workers. The union is arguing that the increase in wages will also prevent manpower outflow to the Incheon and Gyeonggi regions. However, the management side has stressed that such an increase is excessive compared to the inflation and wage increase rates over the past 5 years. The Regional Labor Relations Commission, which has been mediating the negotiations, proposed a 6.1% increase, but ultimately failed to reach arbitration. With the general strike by the union, 7,210 buses, or 97.6% of all Seoul city buses, are now out of service. The last time drivers went on strike was in 2012. However, at the time, the partial strike only lasted for 20 minutes, avoiding any inconvenience to commuters. With this strike expected to last longer, Seoul City began operating emergency transportation measures to minimize inconvenience to commuters by extending and increasing subway services. To quickly connect subway commutes, free shuttle buses are also operating in Seoul's 25 autonomous districts. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Now, on to the latest with the medical standoff. Having reaffirmed its intentions to push ahead with the medical school admissions quota expansion, the government is now sharing its plans for a special healthcare allocation from the national budget. Our Choi Soo-hyung has more.
Amidst the ongoing conflict regarding the government increasing the medical school enrollment quota, the Health Ministry said it will announce a special budget by the end of May.
To ensure concentrated and stable funding, we plan to operate a special account for essential medical services. The next 2 months will be the most important time for budget planning, with a budget request submitted to the Ministry of Economy and Finance by the end of May.
Meanwhile, the presidential office announced plans on Wednesday to increase healthcare spending to ensure that essential medical services are restored to their appropriate levels.
The Yoon administration plans to place the healthcare sector on an equal footing with constitutional duties such as security and public safety. The government aims to make bold investments into medical services.
In the spending plan, the government announced it promised to take over the responsibility for the practical training of trainee doctors itself. The government will also allocate additional funding to regional healthcare and research and development into the expansion of essential medical services outside Seoul. Meanwhile, it is sticking to its regional medical school quota increased to 2,000 students beginning next year and has finalized allocations for each school. At the same time, the government continues to urge for dialogue with the Korean Medical Association. On Tuesday, pediatrician Im Hyun-taek was elected as the new leader of the KMA with 65% of the votes cast. He has voiced opposition to the government's plan and could push for an even larger scale collective action. The exodus of medical school professors nationwide has continued, including almost 430 at Ulsan University and around 400 at Seoul National University. To minimize disruption to patient care, the government says it will deploy an additional 1,900 physician assistant nurses and 200 more public health doctors. Cha Soo-hyung, Arirang News.
An end to skyrocketing prices for fruit and vegetables is high on the government's agenda, with measures in place to bring costs under control. But it doesn't apply to all items, and for how long will they be available at affordable prices? For more, we're joined by Professor Oh Jun-seok. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
To tame fruit and vegetable prices that have skyrocketed in recent weeks here in the country, the government has given support for delivery unit prices for some items. Professor, how effective are they?
Inflation has been moderating, though. The pace has been slower than earlier expected. It's forecast to continue before reaching the target rate of 2% around the end of this year due to high oil and fresh food prices. Consumer prices stands nowadays at 3.1% on high prices, especially vegetables and fruits and other fresh food, and as well as high energy cost. Prices of 18 major kind of fruits, including apple, pears, tangerines, strawberries, and then sweet persimmons combined storage, 41.2% last month, the largest increase in more than 32 years. As a result of this fruitflation, Korea's fruit consumption has diminished by almost 20% over the past 15 years. Import is made in a hurry to handle it, including oranges, bananas, pineapples, mangoes, and then grapefruits. 28 import items are subject to tariff exemption. Government has in this way implemented intensive discount program and other campaigns recently to lower prices of agricultural product and everyday items by using more than $113 billion worth of the country budget. As apple prices have more than doubled over the past 2 years, of course, this program will work temporarily in the market. The spikes, however, will likely soon return to continue throughout the year because they are insufficient to increase supply. Reduced production might be the key factor. Price is not the cause, but the result. Supply is the cause. So we cannot control abnormal weather conditions. We cannot control the damage caused by the low temperature during the spring blooming and summer downpours. But we can control the supply and alternative supply by way of import. That might be the right approach.
Right, and I also couldn't help but notice in supermarkets how the price of cherry tomatoes, not just regular tomatoes, has jumped over 30% compared to a year ago. Professor Oh, what's the reason for this?
Yeah, tomatoes are seasonal crop, and their availability is influenced by the specific growing season in different regions. Let me tell you the why price increase of tomatoes first. First, weather condition was not that advantageous. It could be, we could remember that last summer's long downpour and scorching heat wave caused high volatility. Second, environmental disaster we are heading for is another key factor in the global food shortage. High temperature, heat waves, and hydraulic stress are hindering the crop of different fruits and vegetables. And third, as to the optimization of the program, this is the most important. Few potatoes were selected and planted or to be ultimately replaced by the more profitable crops. If the type of tomato is not pricey, they did not plant it. This is why the price of tomato goes up. Then one makes price of tomato and cherry tomato moves differently. Government intervention. As we already know, the government has implemented intensive discount program and other campaigns recently to lower prices. Cherry tomato is not in the list, while tomato was in the list. Government intervention could set the fire in the market, but never keep the fire in the market. Unfavorably weather condition and the structural issue of the industry is not actually the one of factors. Now it's the government turn to build up handling capability for devise measures to boost up the competitiveness of the fresh farming and revamp its logistics structure.
I see. So retail prices of fruits like apples and tomatoes have been lowered, the regular tomatoes, but there are also concerns that wholesale prices are on the rise. What's causing wholesale prices to go up then?
Again, it's due to government. It's true the wholesale price of apple has more than doubled this year. Wholesale price of pears also exceed at 100,000 won mark for 15 kilograms. Retail price sold in large discount stores and traditional markets have also risen considerably from a year ago. As we already know, the government has recently reduced the price in retail price due to government discount support system. This program is limited. Retail prices only. Wholesale prices are not in the discount support program. Wholesale prices are not subject to discount, are still more than twice as high as they were a year ago. Of course, it's a business secret. Beneath the market, that the distribution channel itself chronically generated inefficiency due to complexity in the process of handling fresh goods, especially in the agricultural sectors. In the aftermath of the weather disaster, apple and pear production fell 30.3% and 26.8% respectively last year. In this way, there is still a possibility that retail prices will rise again as the shortage are reduced and the government's discount support is very limited. It will be a relief for the moment that the government supplies apple and pears in large quantities, not controlling the price in preparation for the increase in demand during the peak season, though the storage volume is also somewhat insufficient.
All right, Professor Oh, thank you as always for your insights. You have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
South Korea and the U.S. have issued another set of sanctions against North Korea as part of their latest efforts to cut off sources of funding used for North Korea's nuclear and missile program. Our Pei-Eun-ji has the details.
South Korea and the U.S. have newly added 2 entities and 4 individuals to their sanctions list for their involvement in illicit financing and generating revenue through overseas North Korean information technology workers that are used to fund the regime's nuclear and missile development. This includes a UAE-based firm called Pioneer Bangkok Star Real Estate and a Russia-based company called Alice LLC. South Korea's foreign ministry explained Thursday that the 2 companies were sanctioned for engaging in the dispatch and operations of North Korean IT workers abroad. Also on the sanctions list are 4 bank representatives, Yoo Boo-ung, Han Chul-man, Jung Sung-ho, and Oh In-jun, for evading sanctions and funding North Korea's nuclear missile development through illegal financial activities such as money laundering. The foreign ministry said Yoo Boo-ung in particular is a person that South Korea and the U.S. have both been tracking. The U.S. State Department also described Yoo as a linchpin in North Korea's illicit financial activities and a person that's skilled at employing various schemes to avoid detection. The latest action aligns with the 6th South Korea-U.S. Working Group meeting to counter North Korean cyber threats, a two-day meeting that began Wednesday in Washington, D.C. Seoul's foreign ministry said the sanctions are expected to raise awareness of the risks related to transactions involving these individuals and entities, not just domestically, but also within the international community. A recent report by a panel of experts at the United Nations shows North Korea has obtained about half of its total foreign currency income through financial theft, such as hacking and cyber attacks. And these funds were used to cover 40% of the resources needed for developing weapons of mass destruction. 배은지, Arirang News.
The U.S. Deputy Secretary of State Kurt Campbell spoke with China's Executive Vice Foreign Minister Ma Xiaozhu on Wednesday local time. The State Department said the call was a part of ongoing efforts to maintain a bilateral communication line. The importance of peace and stability on the Korean Peninsula was emphasized in the call, as well as the Taiwan Strait and South China Sea. Campbell and Ma discussed the two countries' relationship and global issues, including areas of difference and cooperation. Also, Campbell raised concerns about China's support for Russia's military in its war against Ukraine. Some experts say trade issues could have been also discussed, given China's recent complaint against the U.S. to the WTO after Chinese companies were excluded from electric vehicle subsidies in the Inflation Reduction Act. Ukrainian Foreign Minister Dmitry Kuleba has asked Seoul to transfer its Patriot surface-to-air missile system to Kyiv. Despite South Korea's firm stance that it will not supply lethal weapons to Ukraine, Ukraine's top diplomat stressed that the missile system is non-lethal as it only shoots down missiles. Kuleba argued that because North Korea continues to support Russia militarily, South Korea's best strategic security interest would be to help Ukraine. He further emphasized that if South Korea's allies follow the same logic of non-lethal weapon support in the 1950s, South Korea would have been defeated by the North and would not exist today. The envoy also said he understands that decisions have to be made by each country regarding aid to Ukraine. President Yoon was handed a trophy awarding his courage in renewing ties with Tokyo and strengthening three-way cooperation with the U.S. to promote global peace and prosperity. The honor was delivered in person by the daughter of former U.S. President John F. Kennedy. Our Oh Soo-young reports.
President Yoon has received an award he won last year from the John F. Kennedy Foundation for his courage and determination to pursue better bilateral ties with Japan for peace and prosperity for the region and the world. On Wednesday, Yoon met with Caroline Kennedy, the foundation's honorary president and the current US ambassador to Australia, who had requested to deliver the award herself. She is the only surviving child of the former US President John F. Kennedy. Yoon had won the International Profile and Courage Award last year with Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida for working to improve bilateral ties despite domestic opposition arising from historical issues. In particular, the foundation had noted Yoon's efforts towards rapprochement with Japan shortly after assuming office. It added that such courage to choose a more hopeful future led to a historic level of trilateral cooperation between the US and two of its most important democratic allies at their Camp David summit last August. Ambassador Kennedy said it was an honor to personally present the trophy to Yoon, noting he had pushed for the good of his people, nation and the world despite political opposition. Her husband, designer Edwin Schlossberg, who accompanied her to Seoul, had designed the trophy, modeling it on the shape of a lantern used on the USS Constitution warship to signify sincerity and courage amid external pressure. Yoon said he was deeply moved to receive an award from former President Kennedy's family, pledging further efforts towards peace in the Indo-Pacific based on trilateral cooperation with the US and Japan. He noted the honor symbolizes the former US leader's new frontier spirit, which envisioned a better future during hard times through social and economic reforms. A senior official at Yoon's office told Arirang News that it is through the same courage and a sense of mission based on the new frontier spirit that the president has tackled illegal labor union activities, promoted education reform, and steadily pushes for medical reform despite the political disadvantages that may come his way. Previous recipients of the Courage Award include Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, US Presidents Barack Obama and George W. Bush, and former UN Secretary General Kofi Annan. Oh Seong, Arirang News.
Good morning. I'm Kim Seong, and now we turn off to stories from around the world. We begin today in Indonesia, where two losing presidential candidates have demanded a revote, alleging fraud at the polls and general irregularities. Indonesia's top court began hearing the appeals of the two candidates, Anies Baswedan and Ganjar Pranowo, on Wednesday. The results of the February 14th election announced on March 20th indicated that Defense Minister Prabowo Subianto won 58.6% of the votes. Former Jakarta Governor Anies Baswedan and former Central Java Governor Ganjar Pranowo trailed Subianto with 24.9% and 16.5% of votes, respectively. Baswedan and Pranowo both claim irregularities and are critical of Subianto's running mate, 37-year-old Rakabuming Raka, the son of the outgoing President Joko Widodo. The country's top court, at the time led by Widodo's brother-in-law, made an exception for Raka to run despite the minimum age requirement for candidates being 40. Pranowo is demanding that election results be annulled and the winners be disqualified, saying that a firm stand must be taken to reject oppression, including the government's use of state resources and the security forces to support certain candidates. Thailand's lower house of parliament passed the marriage equality bill on Wednesday, moving a step closer to legalizing same-sex unions. If approved through all legal procedures, Thailand will become the third territory in Asia to legally protect equal marriage rights. The bill had full support in parliament with 400 votes for and 10 against from the 415 members. Some lawmakers displayed the LGBT flag during the session, and many applauded as the flag was waved after the bill was confirmed to have passed. Initially, one of the 400 parliamentarians accidentally pressed the wrong button, showing 399 in favor, but the error was amended accordingly. Thailand's marriage equality bill now must acquire the Senate's approval and the King's endorsement before it becomes law. A bus crash on a motorway in eastern Germany, close to Leipzig, has killed at least 5 people and injured around 50. The bus, operated by Flixbus, was on the busy A9 motorway connecting Berlin to Munich before it swerved to the right and ending up on its side. Leipzig's police spokesperson Olaf Hopp said at the site of the crash that while 5 people were killed, that number is not yet verified. Flixbus also commented that the exact circumstances of the accident are not yet known. While the police said the figures were only based on the number of seat bookings, some 53 passengers and 2 drivers were on the bus traveling from Berlin to the Swiss city of Zurich. Now to Russia, where 2 polar bear cubs have taken their first steps outside in the snow at an eastern Siberian zoo. According to a staff member at the Orthodoidu Zoo, the cubs were born in December 2023, but the mother of the cubs did not allow them to venture outside until they became strong enough. The cubs are born blind and weak, weighing only around 500 grams. The mother bear, named Kolimana, was found orphaned in 2012 at a natural reserve in Yakutia's far northeastern Arctic Ocean coast. The father, named Lomonosov, was born at the Leningrad Zoo in St. Petersburg and later moved to Siberia. The zoo's name, Orthodoidu, means middle world in Yakutia's Sakha language. According to local myth, the middle world is where animals and humans thrive, while the upper world is inhabited by the gods.
Good morning. It's a wet day again. These rain clouds will cover the entire country from this afternoon into tonight. And especially those of us in central regions need to be aware that rain could be mixed with yellow dust. Meanwhile, mountainous regions on Jeju and parts of Gyeongsang-do could see up to 80 millimeters of heavy spring showers, along with thunderstorms and strong wind. Afternoon highs will not rise that much, going down 1 to 5 degrees lower than Wednesday, topping out at 14 degrees in the capital, Gwangju and Busan this afternoon. And the change of weather we've had this month made for an unpredictable cherry blossom season. Colder than normal seasonal temperatures and the lack of sunshine due to that frequent rain are behind the delay. Cherry blossom festivals kicked off across Korea, but it will take extra days for the full bloom to appear. But at least the weather conditions will turn more promising from tomorrow for the flowering. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
We thank you for watching New Day at Arirang. We'll be back tomorrow for our Friday's edition at the same time, 9 a.m. Korea time.